Welcome to How to Belong, the podcast that delves into the human quest to find a sense of belonging in what can often feel like a lonely world. Join us as we talk to guests who've navigated their own unique paths, what we like to call their hero journeys, from feeling like they don't fit in, to the profound realisation that true belonging can only ever be found from within. I'm Naomi E. Lloyd, and this is the How to Belong podcast. Hello, and welcome back to How to Belong. I am so looking forward to chatting to today's guest. Lovely, lovely person. The warmest northern voice I could have asked for from a guest. And also, I love the fact that he's someone who, like me, wears his heart on his sleeve unapologetically, as I think he should be. So let me introduce you. Today's guest is Luke Beastall, a man who is coaching and connecting with others by sharing his story. And he does it in a really beautiful, open way. Luke's path hasn't been an easy one. Football was his life for as long as he could remember. But stepping into the pro world didn't go as planned. After being scammed by a fake agent, he fell into a dark place and lost all his confidence. But through honesty, vulnerability, and the support of his amazing family and friends, he has rebuilt himself, finding not only an amazing new career, but also a deep sense of belonging in the world. I hope he will agree with me saying that. But everything I've read and watched about him, that's exactly how it comes across to me. Today, Luke is the founder of Musclecoach UK and Master Your Life, the podcast host and coach, leading a thriving business and helping others find confidence and purpose. So let's dive in. Luke, it's so good to have you here. How are you?
Well, Naomi, thank you so much for that introduction. I'm hoping from today's episode that everything you've shared there and everything everybody sees from the outside comes across in this conversation, because I'm definitely excited to be here with you today.
Well, I've heard you speak on the stage, a very inspirational talk that you did at Mindset Maintenance in Portsmouth last year. And when I heard you talking, I just thought, I've got to contact this guy. And we've connected over LinkedIn and we've spoken and we finally managed to make it happen. And here you are today, going to talk all things belonging and your journey to get here and how you're helping others with your podcast and your coaching and your training. So I mentioned it in the intro, Luke, about football. And that was such a huge part of your life and your identity and your dream. I think I would say is where the best way to describe it. Could you take us through what happened there as you're a young boy on the start of his career, thinking, this is my dream, I'm going to be a pro footballer? What happened?
Oh, wow. There's a lot to it, but just before I get to that, I don't know why this has come to my mind. I just thought I'd share it. So obviously, yes, when you said we'd met at a speaking event, well, obviously we didn't physically meet, but you contacted off the back of it. So just this relates to the football part. Okay, as a kid, I'm a glory Man United supporter. Oh. They have the theatre of dreams, and I always saw myself visioning, walking over that white line with all the lights, floodlights on us, and shining that light and feeling like, I've cracked it. So that's kind of what I kind of sort of created when I was at Mindset Maintenance. Hence the reason I got people to shine the torch.
You did.
On their phones.
You did.
Was I wanted to create my own theatre of the dreams, and I'd written that down 6 months before. 6 months before when I actually got accepted as the speaker on the panel. I was like, right, I'm going to create that. So.
That's beautiful. I didn't realise that. Okay, that makes me think of, have you seen the film Better Man with about Robbie Williams?
I think I've seen bits of it. I haven't.
So what you just described, you need to watch the film, and I'm sure anybody listening will know what I mean about. Is that young lad who has this big dream and it doesn't always go to plan in it, but it's right. I won't spoil it for you or the listeners, but at the end of that, something very similar happened to Robbie Williams, and but in the way that you've just described, where he had this dream, and it was the way the dream came to pass isn't the way that he imagined it. It wasn't traditional sense, but he was able to find a version of that, and it's very similar to what you just described. So there you go, a bit of Robbie Williams and Luke Beastall there.
I know,
northern chappies that you are.
I know, love the Northerners. There we go. But no, that was it. It was just recreating something that, like you say, was my dream, and it was just an opportunity that I thought, wow, this is what I can kind of lean into. So I did. But just going into the football, I can't really ever not remember me kicking a football. It was always glued to my foot. I'm a left-footed player, very dominant on that side. And look, I probably can remember from the early ages of 6, 7, but I mean, my mum and dad said I kicked a ball when I was like 2 and 3.
Oh.
And started out on the amateur side. My dad sort of, as football, I mean, if there's anyone listening to this that have got kids that play football, I don't know, you sort of like go and watch your lad or daughter play, and then you sort of get roped into doing other jobs. And my dad ended up being the manager of our local team. And, you normally think dads will probably put the lads as captain, but I just become a natural leader. I sort of kind of got the team going. I was a loudmouth on the pitch. I love to talk. I mean, people will probably get a gist of that from today. And I just enjoyed it. I just really started flourishing. I had a unique, powerful left foot. It really stood out. Everybody was, sort of talking about us, and I worked hard, on and off the pitch. It was something that I was completely obsessed with. It was a passion of mine. And I guess naturally opportunities started opening up. I started exploring the academy level football. I mean, nowadays, people get the kids in at such an early age, 3 years old into these academies in the professional world. But my dad always said he wanted me to enjoy football, and I'm forever grateful for that. He let me do that, because I find that there's a lot of pressure and a lot of sort of I don't know, stigma attached to it at such an early age. So he allowed me to enjoy it, and I got to travel to places like Germany playing tournaments. I played throughout all year. I played footballs on Saturday and Sunday. I couldn't get enough. I was just completely loving my football. And until, you start getting to an age where you're 13 and you're getting into your teenage years, you're developing, you're starting to become a little bit out of the kiddie stage and become more of a, I guess, responsible adult, if you say. And that's when he decided, look, Luke, I think it's time to push you a bit more into the academies. And then at that point, I'd been on trial at loads of different clubs, and I signed for Rotherham United. That was the first club that, so talking about Northern, Rotherham United. That was the first club I joined, 3-year stint there. And then when I was in my last year at school, they wanted me to step up to the men. So I used to take a day off school to go and train with the academy boys and just nurture me into that environment. And then, I fit in really well, and I got offered what I don't know what it is now, but I know back then it was called a youth scholarship program. So you get paid. I mean, I'll be honest with you, it was like £60 a week. It's nothing. This is what I'm saying. In football, it was very much like you have to play the long game if but at the time you get education. So it's like, if you don't necessarily make it, you've got a bit of education to fall back on, which I did think was very smart. So, you kind of go through a BTEC diploma and football coaching badge whilst under your scholar. I mean, just to fast track a little bit, I got offered a scholarship, so that was great. I thought my dream was on it. I moved away from home. I was living in a home with a family. So at 16, I moved away.
Well, were you in a different part of the country then? Completely different?
Well, yeah, I was living in Dinnington, which is only half an hour away. But being away from home at 16, 5 days a week, it was a massive change for me, especially because at school I was such an outgoing sort of social friendly person. There used to be 40 of us every single break time, hanging out together, school parties, you name it. We were so close. So for me to kind of grow out of that, and everybody kind of go on to like college, uni, whatever, and I just sort of like went on to football. There was a lot of pressure for me, to become a footballer, and I guess show people that, like, I'm moving away and I'm going to make it happen, and I'm going to do it. But look, long story short on that, I had a rough period, in the academy. When I signed on, like, I thought before I had a good manager. Managers change. Like, when personnel changes, it makes a massive difference, like, environment and people you surround yourself with. And 4 months in, I quit. I left Rotherham. I was having a horrible time. I got bullied, to be honest.
By the other footballers in the team.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I struggled very much with they'd call it banter, but for me, I'd say it's bullying. But do you know what? Whatever they see it as, I'm talking things such as, putting like, I think, slitting, I'll give you an example, like slitting your boxer shorts and your balls hang out and stuff. That's funny. It's a bit of a joke. Tie your shoelaces. But when somebody starts putting sort of like coffee granules and shower gel in your food and mixing it up when you've just had a tough training session. I saw that as a bit like, that's bullying now. That's like you ruining food and I'm like hungry kind of thing. And I used to retaliate in a bad way. I didn't know how to deal with it. I got emotional.
Yeah.
I'd cry with anger, not in front of them, but I'd cry with anger when I call up my dad, and my dad just went, look, Luke, this is not what I want for you. You're upset. So yeah, I used to break down in tears, crying on the phone, and all this like sort of build up of, if you talk about 5 years old up to 16, you're talking 11 years. I thought, I'm now on my professional path because I'm getting paid. I classify it as a bit of a pro going, and I was hating it. I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm sure I'm not supposed to feel this way. So yeah, I left, and I just had, again, talking about when we had our podcast about finding a way, I sort of like, what's next? What can I do? Where's the possibilities? But look, there's so much to it. There's so much to it in the football sense. But yeah, I guess it was just
so awful what you went through. It's interesting when you say that about banter. There is such a thin line between banter and belonging, and I think boys and men have a hard time with that sometimes, because it's supposed to be, you're supposed to be able to be tough enough to take banter. But what you just described does not sound acceptable at all. And also the fact that I talk about belonging a lot about this podcast, but you just described it, a classic case of you dreamed this idea and you got there, and then when you got there, everything was against you to allow you to fit in, and then no wonder you were crying angry tears with your dad. Forget just, what were you, 16, 17 at the time?
16, yeah. They're living away from home, yeah.
You're
a
baby. Yeah, I've got an 18-year-old and a 19-year-old, and they're still growing. They're still evolving. Yeah, and I could not imagine that. So kudos for you for just even surviving that, and also having the courage to turn direction when the dream that you'd had for so long didn't necessarily sort of visually or from an experience point of view turn out the way you'd expected. So amazing that you did that at such a young age. Please carry on. I don't want to disrupt the story. I just really wanted to say that because I was feeling it as you were talking about it. I know it's a long time ago, but it's still the awful thought of a 16-year-old going through that.
No, I appreciate it. I just stopped there because I thought, I could have gone on and stuff. And, look, when you just spoke about there about belonging, through my, average, but amateur days, should I say, when I was playing for fun and there wasn't money involved, that was when I had the most sense of belonging. But then when it went into the pro stuff, like I always talk to people about this so openly, is that, look, I am not knocking any of the players that I'd shared a change room with. There's some managers that I really hate, and I know it's a strong word, but they just definitely didn't know how to treat me at where I was at. I was in a low place. I'm talking depression state, and there wasn't even there for me. I just didn't have any, like, when I look back on it, I just had a very rough journey, with the pro football side. I felt like every door was getting closed, even though I would like put my foot in the door. I felt like the door would still get closed. I'd break my foot kind of thing you know what I mean? It's like everything was against me sort of thing. That's how I felt. I guess a lot of it was sort of some of the actions I'd taken as well, out of anger, out of frustration, because I felt like I wasn't heard. I felt like nobody sort of was genuine. When I look at that, a lot of people, if they've been in sport, come on, like if you're like the star player and stuff, everybody sort of warms to you and kind of bigs you up, and you sort of like Jack the Lad sort of thing or whatever. And then when you're sort of not having the opportunities and you're sort of at the bottom, you're more of a target to be sort of bantered in a way. And for me, I still found possibility though in the hard and the tough times. I'm so fortunate for the support of my family, and I always say this, and that's why I get emotional about it, is because if it wasn't for my mum and my dad, I tell you now that I would not be in a good place. I would have probably done some things that, I know I would have regretted. So for me to have that space to talk to them and cry on the phone and not feel shame, it was very, very moving for me. And luckily my dad, he had a good footballing background. He had contacts that he knew, and he was never going to give up on me, and I wasn't going to give up. So luckily, after the Rotherham sort of journey, I moved on and went to Derby County on a trial. Again, tried it. I was well out my depth. I mean, I even put my hands up after like 3 days and went, you know what? These boys are insane. They're so good, but I'm just out of my league. Then I got an opportunity to go to Bury. So that was up in Manchester. And basically, just to give context, because I was supposedly my first year of education, I had to scrap that because I was only 4 months in. And for the rest of that season, so about 7 months, I lived in Manchester with a single lady it was. So she, my dad funded that £20 a night, £400 a month because I stayed there 5 nights. I didn't drive at the time. I was getting the train from Chesterfield on a Monday morning, getting up at 4:45. My dad would drive me to Chesterfield. I'd get on the train, get to Bury, and then I'd live there for 5 nights away from home. My dad paying every day. I had no education. I was just training. I was on trial. I didn't even know if I was going to get a contract or not. And that was the work I was willing to do to try and make it as a footballer. Unfortunately, through my resilience and through my hard work, the club staff loved me. And they was like, God, this guy he's putting so much into it. Like, he just deserves a contract off his hard work alone. Plus, obviously, I was a decent footballer. I wasn't somebody that was well off the mark. So I got offered a contract, and that was another 2 years. So I had to start my education all over. So the belonging part, I didn't feel a sense of belonging because I was always the oldest guy in the changing room in my sort of educational year. So there was a different mindset there. And that was hard. That was a tough one to swallow. And then obviously I had a bit of a run-in with the manager, and he didn't like me. And again, it all changed. This is what I'm saying. Like one thing, like manager can change everything. And I wasn't playing. Look, I wasn't in the squad. I was always getting left out. I was always on the bench. So my mum and dad, they come up to Manchester to watch us, and I was just on the bench, and I wasn't playing. I wasn't enjoying. I really, really started really hating my football. And again, I know that's a strong word, but I just completely started to, and this is what, 18, 19 years old. And I was sort of like losing that sense of hope, really, or sort of confidence in that I was going to, look, if you're not playing and no one's got eyes on you, your chances get slimmer and slimmer by the week. So, yeah, it was tough.
How do you, when you look back on that and remember your parents coming to sit in the stadium and watch you and wondering why you weren't on the pitch, what does that make you feel when you look back? Because you talk about your mum and dad with such love and such connection, and it's clear that a big part of your belonging comes from that very strong bond with your family. But when you think back to Luke at 18, sat on the bench, knowing that your parents are behind him, how does that make you feel now as an adult, imagining, that being your daughter or son in that situation?
Yeah. So no, great question. Look, upon reflection, I think it's important that you're there no matter what. Like if times are low and you're not even playing, the fact that they would still come all that way to be with us. And then what would happen is I'd go home after that. So rather than me get the train home, they'd come and watch. Even if I was on the bench for 90 minutes, they'd be watching me warm up down the side of the pitch, hoping that I might come on and have a bit of a chance to play. But then even so, they knew that they were bringing me home, and I was coming home to and we talk about the whole experience on the way home, and it was just really, really comforting in a way, but also something for me to know that now when I obviously work with clients or with my daughter and stuff, is that, do you know what? Whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's high, whether it's low, I'm here every step. I'm here no matter what. And I think that's something that I was like, at the time, I guess I was just frustrated, and obviously they knew that. But when you look upon reflection, it just shows how much they cared.
I mean, it is that unconditional love that we all hope to receive in life, and it's very clear. So, wonderful for your mum and dad that they've been that support structure for you all along, because it's a hard road to go down, the one that you went down, that following a dream that big. But I'm also a big believer in following dreams, and there's always something else that will come out of it, which you are proving now. So they're in this situation now where you're now 18 and you're living. Oh, I can't imagine that 18 living with training all day and filling out your depth, and then coming home to a house that you're kind of just boarding at, when most lads are probably going out and having fun and learning the girlfriend situations and the bars and etc. And you were doing that. You had that hard work ethic from the start, but not knowing that it would all come come out as you wanted it to do, and then you hit a really horrible situation not far along from there. Can you take us down what happened then?
Yeah, so I think the hardest thing as well with that was that I didn't have much money either. So with obviously only getting paid like what was a very, very small wage, a lot of my friends at that time was on double, if not triple per week, even if there was an apprentice, so they had that cash to sort of spend. I didn't really. My mum and dad would support us in some way. I mean, I even got a personal trainer when I was out living out there to try and, I guess, improve my performance, improve my strength. I was just willing to try anything to sort of get back in the squad. And for me, look, I just, the bad time for me happened when I just got so much rejection. And then I know we'll get onto the bit about the agent and stuff, but look, there was a sports therapist that come from University of UCLan, it was, so Preston, and he came in just for a bit of work experience to talk to footballers about mindset. And at this moment in time, I thought, well, none of managers want to listen to me anyway. They don't take anything that I want to share. So I was in depression at this point, mild depression, not like really serious, but obviously I wouldn't have said at the time I was depressed. But I now looking upon, like I say, the whole scenario, I definitely was, and I just cried my eyes out talking to him. I just cried. I just sort of like, and he just like sat back and listened. It was therapy, he just sat there and listened. It was sort of like, wow, I've actually had a space to share everything that I've been going through with the whole footballing journey. And I, as much as I shared it to my mum and dad, it was just nice to share it to somebody who don't even know me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really powerful. And look, I mean, I didn't get a contract. I knew I wasn't going to get one. I didn't sort of like get my hopes up and get crushed. The football club was in a tough position at the time. So at 19, I was released and I was sort of going, what next? I was determined to try and keep my fitness levels up. That's where the gym came in, really, for me. That's when the gym started being my escape. It started being my church, my freedom. I didn't go down what routes footballers do, being honest, alcohol and drugs and going around with girls and partying and all that. That wasn't, I was still focused. I was still like, I'm going to make this happen. No one's going to stop me. I've had a tough couple of years out of my control in terms of doors getting in my face. So and that's where then I started creating loads of videos, showreel videos, put it on YouTube. I mean, the video's still on there today. I started working with performance coaches in Manchester. I was doing everything. Like, I was really getting around some good top footballers and athletes, and they was all saying to me, Luke, oh mate, you deserve a chance, you're such a hard worker, you are a good technical player and all this. And I was like, oh wow, he's giving us confidence. And then I was starting to see the time ticking, and I was getting on to 20 and then 21, and I sort of was plucking at the straws then at every single opportunity. And then, via LinkedIn, there was a guy that sort of reached out, saw my video, very good con man, FIFA licensed agent. I mean, God, even in the name, when I say it's like someone like Oleg Kuzmenko, and it was a FIFA agent, I looked him up, but don't know, the guy just did it so well. I even had a phone call with him. He had an American accent and stuff. It was just done so well, but I was just so vulnerable and so desperate to make it. So I guess I just didn't see any of that. It's like you're in a bit of a blur. And it got to the point where there was a lot of back and forth conversation, and my dream was to get out of England. I felt like the system wasn't suiting me because I was small, technical. I thought maybe the English football's not for me. Let me see if I can get overseas. And I saw America as an up-and-coming soccer system. They were building it up. And obviously, I loved David Beckham as a kid. He'd been out to LA Galaxy. And anyway, they pitched LA Galaxy as like the club that they're looking to get players. And I was like, under 23 squad. So I thought, because I was 21 as well, I thought, well, I can't get in under 21s now. So under 23s were like a new sort of age group. So I was like, oh, no, this is so cool. And then it got to the point where there was like, yeah, Luke, watch your video, love it. And then they was asking for money. So I said to my dad, they're asking for a registration fee, like sort of to get the contracts together. They want a registration fee, and then a registration fee. And then once you sign a contract, they'll take like a bit of sort of percentage of your contract. This was new at this point. I mean, I don't know what they do now. I know agents sort of like get a chunk of your contract money if they get you a club, but I'd also heard some agents at that time, this was relatively new, like I say, where they would just want an upfront fee for registration. So they kind of work, so they're getting a bit of money for the work that they're doing, and then they'll sort something out. So I was understanding. I was like, oh, fair enough, it's business. Asked for like 500 quid. it was wired via Western Union. And then this is where my brain started to go, something's not right. It got wired across to like an American address to a woman. And I was thinking, right, this is pretty odd. Anyway, that's where the cracks started to appear. And I got reached out to by a couple of other footballers. There was a guy in Sao Paulo, Brazil, messaged me on LinkedIn. His English weren't great, bless him, but he asked me, has this guy kind of reached out to you? And he said that he'd done the same thing, talk about this money, wired it across and screenshotted where he wired it to. And I was like, oh, no way. This is exactly the same place. So bearing in mind, before that, I'd said to my mum and dad, I've got a contract at LA Galaxy. They want me to fly over and do whatever. Imagine if I'd have booked flights and everything, it's just mad thinking about it, that people do this to people. And and then obviously I was like, mum, dad, it's a scam. And then before I knew it, I tried to report, trying to get my money back. They all fell off the face of the earth, shut everything down. And I was like, oh my God, I'll break into tears. And I'll never forget my dad saying to me, he just put his arm around and said, look, listen, you're here, mate, you're with us. It's money at the end of the day, it's paper. You're with us right now. You're not over there. Nothing's happened to you. You're safe. You're healthy. So, look, we can get that money back in other ways. Just keep your head up, son, kind of thing.
I love the sound of your dad. He's
a legend.
He does sound like a legend. He sounds like a complete northern legend. He sounds brilliant. But not to distract from the emotion and the horror of what you went through, because that is just diabolical that people do that and prey on young people's dreams or anybody's dreams at whatever age. I mean, you explained that so elegantly and in such a clear way. I have heard you tell that story I've watched a video of it on LinkedIn, and I know that in the past when you've been in a sort of more of a speaking situation with people in a room, it's brought you to tears even recalling that, because there's one thing you explaining to us that you had this big dream and you'd been, all these years that you as a young guy had been, dedicated and focusing and giving up other things other people were reaching for. But to go from, what was it like? Was it 24 hours from thinking that you were going to LA and celebrating to the absolute crashing downfall, that humiliating, I imagine, as well. Just the somebody doing that to you, it's horrendous. I'm really sorry you went through that. However, there is a but there, because you telling that story is very powerful, and I could see that even from watching it on LinkedIn, because there will be other people of all different generations that will be in these sort of positions, and it'll be a different variety of scam or everything else like that. And it's not because we want to dream crush, but I think it's really important because you had such a strong focus and desire to get there that somebody preyed on that, and that is just beyond horrendous. How do you feel about it now, looking back on it? And in some ways, do you see it? Do you see these things that happened to us as part of your story, that it's okay because maybe you were meant to go through that so that you could be where you are now? If that's not too cliche.
No, it is cliche. Obviously, everything happens for a reason. It's definitely shaped me in my character, my resilience, the way I am. I've found that there is ways and things that obviously are supposedly more in your control. Obviously, that wasn't really in my control. I guess I was very reliant on other people in a lot of that I've been through. And I realized, actually, hold on a minute, the only person I can truly rely on is myself. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't like doing things alone. I really don't. But I think when I talk about it and when I get emotional, I think what it actually teaches me is that I bottled it up for so long. I just didn't really probably check in with myself. I feel like I just kind of numbed it. I got numb to it for so long. And when I now talk about it, I'm going, oh my days, that did affect me. And that's and when I get teary about it, it's not because I'm just trying to share emotion. It's because it broke me. Yeah. You know what I mean? It absolutely it knocked every bit of confidence away. If you'd have looked at me at school, I say this about school, I got the most popular award at school. I
can imagine that. Yeah,
it was one of those. I got like A star in drama. I was the most likable guy. I never dismissed anybody. Like I would there was like different groups at school where you'd have like, oh, they're those smokers, or they're the popular people, or they're the goths, or whatever. And I'd say hello to everybody. I would never ever dismiss anybody in a room. I would always be likable and hello and hey and most approachable. And I felt like the world was like crumbling, and I was going, I just was literally, I did start being the victim and going, why is this happening to me? But then I realized actually going, do you know what? You know, no one's going to save you really in this situation. So, Luke, you've got to look at finding, like we've already spoke about, finding a way, but I had to find another way.
How did you manage to sort of go through that process of, well, pain and rejection and, you know, reframing everything that you were looking for? And how did you go about that to then make the next step to find a way forward? What was the next process? Was it saying goodbye to football? Was it just too painful to keep going back there? And there's nothing wrong with that, because I think that's a really good thing to talk about, that sometimes where you think you want to be isn't where necessarily you're going to end up heading, and it's okay to take a detour. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well,
it's not failure. It's not failure. I've done it many times.
No, I know we were talking about this, weren't we? But honestly, for me, the detour couldn't have come really at a better time for us. I mean, obviously, at 22, going on 23, the last stint I did, I'll never forget. You know, it was May 2015 was sort of like, right, it's a decision now. And at this point as well, I looked at going to play. There was an offer for me to go to, there was potential opportunity, should I say, to go out to play football in New Zealand part-time and be a coach, and they would, you know, supply a house and a car and, again, help because that league was up and coming. Like, I didn't even realise New Zealand and Australia was sort of growing their leagues, you know. And also, I'd been in Scotland, so I thought I had a 3-week stint in Glasgow, and I was part of this academy. And they got me a few trials at like Partick Thistle and Motherwell. Got rejected. You know, you're not big enough, you're not physical enough. You know, all little things like that. When you're not someone who's going to fit into our squad, completely okay with it. You know, at that point, I'd had lots of rejection. I'd been on lots of trials, and I thought, do you know what? I'll give it my last shot, sort of thing. And at this point, from May through to like May, I come back home and I started working with my dad part-time. He's an engineer. He's got his own business and stuff. And I just started, like, I guess, discovering what it is that I wanted to do. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like thinking, I've got my GCSEs. I've got a BTEC in sport. I've got a football coaching badge. What do I do? Do I want to go into coaching? No, I freaking do not want to go into football coaching. I resented football. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. I didn't want anyone to know that I just sacked football off, basically. So I thought to myself, well, what do I love? And then my mum and dad had actually started traveling a little bit more. As kids growing up, they started getting a bit more money because they weren't spending it on us. So they started. I know, yeah. So they started going on a few more, I guess, like luxury traveling and stuff like that. So yeah, they went on a cruise ship, and whilst they're out on the cruise ship, they saw sort of like the crew members on the beach, and they was playing volleyball and having a few drinks, and they were just like having loads of fun. To them, they realised that one of them was like a fitness trainer. So they was like, oh, fitness trainers, because a lot of people go, what? Gyms are on a cruise ship. Well, everyone just wants to eat. You know, it's quite, but now it's more normalised. But back then, it was very much like eat your holiday or something kind of thing. You know. Yeah. So they come home to us. My dad come home and he says, Luke, you go to gym a lot, mate. You know, why not look at becoming a personal trainer? So I was like, well, yeah, good sort of idea. So anyway, by that point, I'd looked at courses, and I had the benefit of doing an in-person course, which I'm forever grateful for, because I just don't know how people do these online ones, if I'm honest. But I love the in-person stuff. Did a 6-week intensive, got my qualification. There was a caveat to that. I actually I share this quite openly as well, that bearing at this point, I'd not had any experience, and 4 weeks in, and this is why I say everything happens for a reason, I think this was meant to be for me, is that 4 weeks in, there was an interview for the cruise ships. But the thing is before that, the tutor that was teaching me on like the qualification had been on cruise ships, and he was talking about like going, Luke, you're traveling every day, you're in a different port, you know, these girls and fun and all this. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like my dream. This is it. Like, I need this sort of like new environment and reset in my life. So I was like, I'm sold. Oh, mate, there's an interview in Leeds on this date, but I'm not qualified. Like, I know I'm not going to qualify for another 2 weeks, and there's not another one for like a couple of months. What am I going to do? I really want to do it. So anyway, he forged my certificates. He believed in me. He believed in me that, like, Luke, you're going to smash at me. Don't you even worry about it. Like, let me do these certificates just so I can go to this interview. And I'll never forget, I rocked up at the interview, in Leeds, and I went through the doors, and there was women, like girls everywhere, all with makeup on. They're all spa therapists, because when you're a gym fitness instructor, you work within the spa. Obviously, I didn't know this because I'd never even been on a cruise.
How convenient.
I know, literally, yeah.
I mean-
I was like, I'm in a great space here. And I was like, I'm in wrong place. I'm sure I am. And then the woman was called Angela, and she says, are you Luke? And I said, yeah, I am. She went, oh, you're the only boy here today. You're absolutely in the right place. Don't worry. I know there's a lot of sort of women around. It's just that you're the only fitness instructor that's on this sort of interview. So I was like, oh, right, okay. So then she was... she literally got me up first to introduce myself to everybody. Absolutely. At this point, remember, I'd not had much confidence in myself. I got it all kind of knocked down, introduced myself, and then I had to do a live consultation. And she was acting as though somebody wanted to lose weight. And what I'm talking about throwing myself in the deep end and just completely winging it in a way, but also not, because it was a passion of mine. I understood fitness and well-being, and I loved talking and coaching. I just kind of thought, wow, I'm just sort of naturally getting into this. And bearing in mind, then again, I wasn't scared of moving away. I went down to Watford, where they hosted all the trainings for the cruise ships to get all your medicals and your certifications and all that stuff. And truth be known, went down there, 3 weeks course, and they assigned me a ship to fly it to Vancouver. And then that was a 9-month contracting commitment that you make, and I needed that as well. I thought I need some commitment. I didn't want to just, because football clubs, it 1 week here, other week there. So that I will always say that changed my life.
I just love everything about that story. It was such a good decision to make, and I'm so glad. It'd been horrible if you'd gone on the cruise ship and it was, or the other people weren't very friendly, or you were faced with another knockdown. But actually, it sounds like it was a really good part of your life, and it allowed you that time that you needed to get away from everything. And what's it like working on a cruise ship? In that situation, is it easy to fit in there? Is it easy to feel a sense of home, even though there's, you're in a little cabin and see strangers all the time? What was it like? I'd love to know.
Well, it was an adjustment, I can tell you that. So yeah, I'd never been on a cruise ship. So like I say, we call them boats. So I've never been on a boat, but it's a cruise ship. But I rocked up at the terminal with my 2 suitcases, and I looked up, and it was massive. There was only I think 3,000. I've been on bigger ones since, but what I'm saying is there was 3,000 people on it, and I was just looking, going, I actually cannot believe this is my home for 9 months. And I walked on there, clean shaven, looked like a baby. I was 22, going on 23, and I was like, oh my days, this is a life that I have no familiarity with. It's the unknown, but I really enjoyed that. But what I did love most about me stepping onto this is nobody knew me.
Yeah.
So there was no sort of football attached to it, going, oh, did you make it in football, mate? Nobody knew me. It was like I flew out to Vancouver, and I just put myself in it. And then you start making friends as you go along. Obviously, I met all the spa, and you make friends that way. You meet so much of the crew, and I guess you start building up your social skills again. And the biggest thing that I found with the cruise ship is obviously you teach classes like yoga, Pilates, stretch. I had to be communicative. I had to learn to teach and coach. And again, I learned as I went, and it was all new to me. I'd never taught a PT session, never taught a class in my life until I actually, real life, I'm talking, until I went on a cruise ship. And then a big part of the cruise ship was public speaking. So that's where I started building up my confidence with a whiteboard and pen and headset, talking about health, gut health. And I was actually selling a product, so it had to lead to a sale. So I was doing consultations where there was thousands of dollars on the table for them to invest in, and it was the art of persuasion from me. It was sort of providing something I believed in and helping them with their lifestyle.
Amazing. And so from then, after that 9 months, did you kind of come back to England as a sort of a completely different Luke? That your mum and dad were like, whoa, what's happened to Luke?
Well, yeah, I come back with a really weird accent, sort of like American, Australian, weird twang. But I actually met a girl at the time, and she come home, and then I went out to New York. I lived out there for 3 months. So again, my life was very much on flights kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, I returned to cruise ships for another contract because our relationship, unfortunately, didn't work out. But yeah, I was totally different. My confidence, they even came out when I was about 7 months into my first contract, was doing Alaska. And they came out and seen me and joined in on the seminars and saw what I was doing. And there was just like, Luke, you're such a grown up, kind of mature businessman sort of thing. And the thing is like Musclecoach UK, you know, I actually created that name and the identity and everything, the business cards, the results with care, all that stuff was born and created before I went out on cruise ships. So I did that so fast. And again, that has meaning to me from my own experience. Like Musclecoach wasn't like sort of where do I get the name? It had something that meant a lot to me in terms of my own fitness journey. And yeah, I parked it to go on cruise ships to start finding myself again, I guess, and seeing where I was going to go. And then I did that for 2.5 years. And then I decided, right, I'm just kind of a little bit bored of this now. I've done all the traveling, had my fun. I thought, right, I want to start building a life really and building my business. So that's when I come back on land in 2018 and I set up a business and started PTing in a gym local to me when it was a brand new gym opening. So I thought, well, here we go, another great opportunity.
And you said I came back on land. It's almost as if you had to allow yourself to go into another sort of fantasy world for a bit, which kind of a cruise ship. I mean, I've been on one. They are. It's a crazy concept, isn't it? If you think about it, all those people sailing around. Not criticising. I'm definitely open to the idea of doing more, but it's almost like having that time for just Luke to go and live in a bit of a fantasy world for a bit was just what you needed. I love what you said about you could go there and you could be whoever you wanted to be because nobody else knew. We've all done that. We've always yearned for that. I think most of us yearn for that parts of our life where we just think, I just wish I could just go off for a bit and just be somebody different for a bit and just try how that feels. See if it, you know, try that new identity on for a bit, even if it's acting a bit, or just give my brain and my everything a bit of space to try that out. And I love the fact, but then you came back on land and it was you were ready to go, you're ready to launch.
Yeah,
and,
I was.
Yeah. And where did the podcast come from that process? Are we have I jumped ahead a bit there?
You have, but I'm happy to answer it. It's absolutely fine. Great question as well. So it kind of. Look, the podcast, I mean, just talking about the business standpoint, Musclecoach UK was sort of like I built a team of coaches to kind of condense it. And the program, I wanted to create something beyond just fitness, really. And the master in your life, I just kind of listened to a lot of personal development podcasts, would you believe? Just walking, getting my steps in, listening to loads of sort of self-help and that. And I was like, I keep hearing mastery, self-help, mastery, whatever. And I thought, I've always been a person that I love helping people, not just physically or mentally. I like the whole life, really. Without me saying I'm going to change your life, it's like I kind of do naturally without forcing it. And I was like, master your life. I literally written in my notes as I was walking, master your life. So I written that and the program failed. So I actually did a massive launch. I share this openly as well. I put £10,000 of my money into it, did the drones, did it with Abby, my fiance, and she was going to kind of coach the females and coach the males. It was like real people with real results, all that stuff. So it was it had genuine authenticity behind it. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, this sounds amazing. But you know what? The marketing, whatever we did anyway, it just didn't work. So it kind of like failed and fizzled away. But I thought to myself, I don't want it to just like die. I feel like there's something in this. So Abby sort of like went her separate way because she was like, look, I'll let you do your thing. Because obviously I kind of come up with the name. So she was like, you know, we kind of just accepted that. And I started feeling lonely again. I was online. I was doing all online coaching, online stuff. I started doing networking online. And then I was doing in-person stuff. And I thought to myself, I was going to all these business places and I was actually trying to do public speaking in businesses to help their staff with well-being and stuff, because I took a qualifications like mental health exercise coaching. I knew how important it was anyway, not just the body but the mind. And I was getting nowhere, and I thought, God, everybody's so filtered. People just can't be themselves. It's like as soon as you're walking through, here's my business card, or you know, they ask them what you do, it's all elevator pitch. It just seems so surface level. So I thought to myself, master your life. I thought everyone's just in a boardroom, everyone's just in just such a filtered way of life. Like I want to hit them with questions, and I want to get deep with people. Like I'm fed up with this surface level stuff. So anyway, here's me. I thought I procrastinated on this podcast for honestly 15 months. I'd been on a few myself, and I started to find what I enjoyed being on as a guest, which was more even what we're doing here, like less is more sort of thing with like the questions. And I've always been quite a listener and I guess extractor and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, you know what, this is a bit of me. And I think by me having conversation, not only is it going to sort of be personal development for me, but I'm just going to build build a community and connect with business owners, which that's the mindset I've got, is being a business owner. And I wouldn't see it in any other way. So here's me putting it out there, launching it, and sort of, just seeing where it goes. And this is it. Here we are.
And it's a success because would you agree? It certainly comes across that way to me.
It's going. I mean, look, I don't know. I mean, in terms of what I feel, I definitely think it is. Yeah, I'm very, very. I'm more than happy where it's going.
Well, if I were to say to listeners that when we go back to the start of this conversation, when I mentioned that I within the audience watching you at this maintenance, mindset maintenance. Sorry, I lost my words then.
That's it. Yeah.
And there was a keynote speaker there that you were sitting alongside. And do you mind telling us who that was? Because I very much went there to see that person.
Oh yeah, no, he's really big. Yeah, Alex Partridge. Yeah,
Alex Partridge talking about ADHD. You were sitting on that stage with him. As a genuine key speaker, and as you know, it was you that I approached that I wanted to speak to, because it wasn't just your warmth and your northern accent that I am always drawn to, but it was your way of telling your story in such an authentic, real, and absolutely, not surface level.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it when people are prepared to I've heard you say before, you do wear your heart on your sleeve, and that's not something that all men do, or what they're not brought up necessarily to do.
Yeah.
This is where this is why I wanted you to come on to How to Belong, because I think it all comes back to this. You have a very strong foundation with your mum and dad, clearly.
Oh yeah.
And I know you've got a lovely sister as well.
Two sisters, yeah. Two sisters, yeah.
And they've always been your rock. But along that, you've had a hell of a journey that not everybody goes through, where you've really gone out there. And I really relate to this because I've done similar things, different style of chasing dreams and being open and keeping the doors open. And when the doors didn't lead you where you wanted to go, just trying to find another way, another route. And you've done it in such a way that's now going to help other people. I mean, can I ask you, when did you start to feel like you belonged in your own life at this point? After everything, you've had such a varied journey, but at what point do you think you started to feel like you actually belonged, that you could offer this back to people?
No, absolutely. I really, really love that question. So thank you. And I like what you said there, and I put it together. So thank you for that. It always makes me feel warm. It makes me feel good that, you're kind of giving and serving to others and stuff. So look, for me, the only, I think it's just not following what is deemed as certain ways of being to be successful, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah, so I look, I'm a go-getter. I'm very driven. I want it now. I lack patience, but I've learned a lot about slowing down and all that kind of stuff. I just love getting after it and energy, and that's what used to be on a pitch. I'm like, come on, let's get it, let's have it, sort of thing. But it's just because I want people to do well. Listen, anybody I come into conversation with, I want them to do well. If I know they're genuine, I'll back them every single step of the way, sort of thing. So I think for me, I had lost that myself. I started trying to do this fancy talk and be this sort of, even posh. I was like,
you
just
changed your accent on stage.
Yeah,
we've all done that.
Not on stage, but just the conversations after. Like, Abby would even go, "What are you doing?"
Yeah,
and I didn't realize it. I guess I think I was just sort of trying to. Look, I wanted the bougie lifestyle. I'm not going to lie. I started just losing myself, and this is when I felt lonely again. This was before the podcast and stuff, and I was just very much like, I had to go back to my core. I guess, like, who am I? Who am I? I mean, I'll never forget a performance coach I worked with, and it completely sort of like knocked me back. I didn't know the answer. Like, when we was talking, it's like, oh, God, I think about that one. It was like, Luke, if I took your business away from you right now, who are you?
Good question. I like it.
It was, and I didn't know the answer at the time. I mean, for me now, it's like I know who I am. Like I'm obviously a loving father. I'm a loving fiance. I love spending quality time. I've got great boundaries. I know when to take time off. I know when to recharge. So I don't always get it right, but I'm so much more in tune with it. My awareness is so much better. I don't chase metrics as such. I was very much metric driven, and I think that come from lots of mentorships that I invested in. But that was just because I was willing to learn and grow, and also from people. But I guess a lot of what they did, it was very much just take not much give kind of thing. So And I'd always been a given. I was always a lover, not a fighter sort of thing, fighting for a sale or fighting to get a client through the door. I was always like wanted to put my arm around, like I wanted people to put the arm around me and look after me, and I look after them. And it was all that, sort of emotional. That's why, like, for me, I have no shame in being emotional and crying on stage. So belonging to me, I guess I started to feel it when, I could walk into a room and just have a conversation with somebody and actually be me. And if somebody asked me what I do, I'd just say it however I want to say it. I don't have to think about an elevator pitch and think about a certain outcome or whatever. I just was like, this is me, this is who I am. And that's what I did. Like, even when you listen to me on the stage, it's like, there's people like, where do you find communities? I said, look, this is it. You can start with one person, whatever. There were so many things I just share from such a raw place. And, some people like it, some people won't. And that's it.
Well, I'm sure the majority of people do like it. And it's really making me think of, one of my mentor gurus that I'm sure many people share is Dr. Brené Brown. Have you heard of Dr. Brené Brown? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, she's great, yeah.
Well, you, to me, for some reason, I always think of Brené Brown when I think of you. And I'll tell you why. Because you are so prepared to share rawness and vulnerability. And as Brené Brown says, being vulnerable is the fastest way to gain connection with people. And that vulnerability is connection. And it's the fact that we don't always, we're scared of being vulnerable. We're scared it makes us look weak, but it doesn't. It allows the connection to really thrive. And let's face it, that's what my podcast is about. That's what my why is about, is trying to reach out and find connection. Which, again, I'm always wary of the being cheesy and the cliches, but I always say they're all truisms as well. And you to me epitomise somebody that is connecting on a really big scale. And all the journey in that story you've been through before was all meant to happen. And as painful as it's been at certain times, it was meant to happen. And it sounds as though from beneath it all, it's giving you that strength that you can withstand the storms. And I don't think I've had rejection in my life, definitely, being a writer and things like that. These things happen, but the way what you've been through, that's quite an extreme version when somebody puts themselves on that kind of career path. So I just commend you for it, for having that smiley face that you've got now and going on stage and being prepared to cry and being a man prepared to cry like that as well. If that's okay to say, then I think that's also admirable. And I know people will really enjoy listening to your story. Where are you now then? Where is the dream taking you now? And it can change, it's okay, but where right now in 2025 is your head in the dream space, would you say?
Oh yeah, let's go to the dream. Cloud nine.
Cloud nine, love it.
Yeah, love it. Well, thank you for that. You articulate that so well, and it means so much to us that you say that, and that's what I love about things like this, when you've got a similar sort of approach which you have with regards to the podcast: belonging, space, connection, depth. For me, it rolls off the tongue, unfiltered and raw, and I think that's the best way to do things personally. That brings people together. It's like beautiful, it's magical, it's so good. But for me, look, I see myself standing in front of thousands. I really do. I think for me, I really want to do that. I want to impact people through the podcast, through all different streams. I find that if I have an opportunity where it allows me, and it aligns with me, obviously, I just genuinely believe I can uplift people. My public speaking talk, it's relatively new. I'm not going to say I'm by far an experienced talker, but I just know that I can add value to any audience because, I think a lot of us struggle with energy. A lot of us struggle with that sort of possibility and exploring the impossible, if you deem it as that anyway, which it's not, but you would see it as that. And look, I've got a story where I've felt all of those emotions. I have had to shut doors on things that was my dream for so many years. So there's a lot of relatability there, and I just find myself going out there with the stage. I can see my podcast, streaming and hitting loads. I can see the production side of things getting more sort of, I guess, cleaner and more potent with where it's going to go. My coaching as well. I mean, I've got I've got, like you just said about multiple hats, all my days, like I could literally relate to that so much because my fingers are in loads of different pies.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in businesses, I'm in business partnerships, I'm working with clients, I'm getting to actually help, you know, and I take this as a privilege because it's pressure. Pressure is privilege to me, is that, you know, they're sort of like in a transition of leaving what is employment behind, which they're so much used to and scared to leave, that I'm transitioning their mindset and helping them build their business in whatever that is. I get to do that every single day. So I think that will continue to grow as well. And look, I mean, for me, I just feel that I've been put on this earth, you know, in this world to serve. I think I've got a great skill set that is me, and I absolutely love it. Every single day when I get opportunities, even like this that you've presented to us today, it's not about the monetary outcome, it's just about the impact.
Yeah, and it's contagious. So thank you for that, because I'm just smiling listening to you, and I'm wanting to almost clap at the idea of seeing you on, you know, and get people to shine the lights on their phone again next time you do it, because it was such a good thing to do. Yeah. What's the name of your keynote speech? Do you have a particular title for it, or do you have different? Does it vary according to who you're talking to?
I mean, I don't want to vary it, to be honest, because, you know, there's two sides to it. But the name of it is Start by Saying Yes. So, you know, for me, it was at a point in my life where, you know, football was the only thing that I was used to. And I just said yes to personal training. It was like, okay, yeah, I'll give it a go. And it was the same thing like when I went out on cruise ships. Yep, I'll give that a go. It was the same thing when it was like 3 weeks into my contract, they were on about skydiving in Hawaii. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. And all these life experiences that I've done and just said yes to without necessarily overthinking it.
Yeah,
it's changed me so much. So for me, I think for a lot of people, there is power in saying no, definitely. And I do say that in the talk, but just, yeah, start by saying yes, be open-minded.
Yeah, I very much a supporter of that, and I've done it to my fault, actually. I've said yes to certain ideas and ventures, which is like you, why we have our fingers in many pies, but there's richness in that, isn't there? And you find so many little hidden gems when you do it. So, oh, look, this has just been the most amazing conversation. I really appreciate you coming on How to Belong. And I really hope to see you on stage in Portsmouth again, or indeed in Yorkshire when next time I'm up there, if you're down that way as well. Can I just ask one final question, and then I will sort of refer to the show notes. But belonging to you, what does it mean to you? If you could find a way to summarize for you where you are now, what belonging means to you?
I think, do you know what, for me, and like it honestly has made me feel this way even on this like sort of podcast. You can tell there's belonging in just what we're doing, right? I think if you can just walk in a room and you just instantly feel warmth and good energy, you know, like that certain like you just, as soon as you talk to the first person you come into contact with, that you're just smiling. I don't know. That for me is now. Like, yeah. I think for me that is just like I'm in the right place, you know, and that's where, because I've been lonely and you know, I was even lonely last year, you know, and we'll come in and out of it as business owners, as I'm sure, but you know that feeling when you walk in a room and you belong there, because there's different people and energy. You don't just walk in a room and everyone's on their phones or just in the little groups and they all know each other. It's like some randomer comes up to you and kind of puts their arm around you without them doing it. And I think that for me is belonging.
Oh, and you're placing yourself in those rooms many times over, so you're on the right path there. So fantastic. Thank you, Luke. Where can listeners find you? Where's the best place to find you? I will put it all in the show notes, but just a quick heads up.
Oh, no, thank you. Just put my name, really. Just put like Luke Beastall on all social media platforms. I'm on there. You'll come across everything that I do. You know, I don't need to explain it, really. You'll find it. And
there's only one. You are the one and only Luke Beastall, I take it.
Well, there is a few. Well, I'd like to say I'm the only one, but no. But if you just see something such as like podcast host, coach, all that stuff, yes, you will find us. But honestly, any listeners want to ever chat and connect, I've always got time for good people.
Amazing. Oh, well, thank you again, and I look forward to sharing it. Thank you for coming on How to Belong.
Oh, thanks again, Naomi. I've really enjoyed it.